don't have to get there.
Sorry, which person are we talking about?
No, say there
Which,
was a cop,
okay.
right? And it's not, so when there's one incident, yeah, it's very hard to tell unless you can find a letter that's like, I'm going to go kill a black guy at work today. Sure. I would be willing to go with that. But otherwise, if it's just one-off incidents, you always have to default to the lesser in this country. We give people proper due process and we take the lesser action from the state, not the greater action by the state. That's why I get frustrated. I know you don't see it, but it's very authoritarian and totalitarian the way you're coming from, that there will be these benevolent dictators that get to decide and of what is good and what is not. And I'm saying we have to always default to the lesser response, which means if there's one person, you have to assume that's aggression when it comes to police, unless you have something outstanding. Now, when things escalate and you find like, there's a cop that's choked out two people in the exact same way, we might be talking about violence. This dude might be a serial killer using policing as his cover. That's an entirely different scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's why I say there's a clear difference. When someone is all we can say is that it's aggression, and that's all we can confidently say, then we must be focused on policy, no vengeance whatsoever, just trying to figure out the situation. Now, when it's violence, I get the kind of vengeance idea.
But I think aggression could be the exact same thing.
It can't, because
aggression could be possibly.
Aggression is just being misinformed.
Yeah, but again, let me go farther.
And sometimes it's right.
Can aggression turn into violence in the exact same interaction?
No.
Not at all. So at the point when a person no longer feels that their life is at risk, and then now, is it still in the continuation of aggression?
Well, sure, if they no longer felt that, but how would you determine that? You'd have to have very serious evidence before you got there.
Well, it's like I look at a situation where, again, with
like a cop almost can't murder. You understand that, right? So charging any cop with murder is fucking nonsense.
It's because of
a murder's premeditated. It can't be murder.
It's tough to do. Even the Derek Chauvin situation.
There's no way you're going to get premeditated.
It's tough. It's tough. I think the only way that they'll try to get premeditated if they say that they knew each other before.
But that's too long. It's too weak. It's not going to work.
That's so tough.
Right, but you get the difference. I know it's hard to deal with this, but there is a difference in this. And if we treat aggression like it's violence, we're the violent ones. We're the problem. The empathy, we as society.
Why would you say that?
Because aggression is someone's being misinformed. We don't put people in prison and treat them like animals because they were misinformed and we didn't agree with their misinformation. I think you're extremely misinformed, and I'm sure you think I'm extremely misinformed about certain things. Neither one of those opinions fucking matter. We must go off of the facts in the situation and default towards empathy, default towards not doing vengeance. The fourth thing that causes violence is the police themselves, because they are the violence answer. Just because you're the one in charge of the violence doesn't make you not violent. When you want to put that dude into a prison cell, you are the one doing it. Now, if you think that that's better for society, that's aggression. But if you're looking at vengeance, that's violence.
I'm not even really looking at aggression in regards, again, let's talk about me in regards to the prison system. It's like, no, I think that these people actually need to go to places that are actually rehab.
Right, then fight for that, but that's not what's happening. When you want to put a police officer to prison, you're sending them to the exact same system and the exact same jail that you allegedly have a problem with.
I'm only having it that these issues have accountability. That's all I care about.
Accountability can just be getting fired. You don't get to determine what accountability does. The community does. So if you think that accountability is Derek Chauvin being put in a prison cell, that's cool. That's your opinion. But that doesn't do anything to prevent the next Derek Chauvin. What if Derek Chauvin is actually a better cop than the one that replaces him?
I have an issue, but again, I have a huge issue with policing in general from the foundation.
Right, so but what if your actions are replacing the current police with ones that are violent, not aggressive?
Yeah, and I think it's because I think the voices of the ones who are actually like decent cops and great cops out there are being silenced.
Right. And how decent are they going to be when you're locking them up because they can't make an instant decision? I just don't see the empathy. I don't see human empathy from the left anymore. I see us versus them. I see violence. I see a dictatorial concept. I see authoritarian rule to say that whatever we think should be the way it is, and that's just not how any.
It's both sides that are doing this.
Right. My policy about how to do this is about building the framework so the community can decide, not me. And I see the whole movement making decisions about how they can decide, not the community.
I think we are, but again, they are the community.
They aren't. The protesters are an extremely small minority.
But those are the people that are actually.
Dude, I'm in Phoenix. This is 5.6 million people, something like that, and like
yes, you also live in a more.
But 500 people showed up at a protest. When I was in Baltimore, even at
we're also in the middle of a pandemic. So I think if we weren't in a pandemic, the numbers would be much larger.
They'd be much smaller because people would have better shit to do. But
no, stop.
Dude, seriously? You think people would rather fucking go? The protest is their amusement now. It's LARPing.
Yeah, because you could say
it's live action role play. That's why they occupy towns. They create what did they do? What did they do in an occupied zone? The first thing they do is put up walls. They get private security. They fucking do all the things that they said they were against.
Okay, with Chaz.
Yeah, it's LARPing.
We're not against. And again, we're not against.
No, you need to disassociate yourself from this group. You're not this group. No, they're not asking for that. You are. I understand you are.
Like we're all like one basic organism.
The majority is going to win if you think anyone in general. I don't mean you. But again, when your argument isn't good enough to win on your own team, why the fuck should anyone else care?
The issue is, look, if Black Lives Matter wants to do that, I'm not also against what they're doing. I'm just doing it in against a different way.
Well, you should be against it because all they are is new policing, racist policing. They set things up like black only areas. This is all on the left. This is all on the Black Lives Matter side. The racism is solely on that side.
They only want black.
They set up black only areas. They say white people can't speak. Are you missing this? I mean, you know this takes place.
The saying that they don't look, I think it's because
if a white person said a black person shouldn't speak, it would be dramatic. I first saw this in the Women's March, and this is really where I started to turn against. Hold on. In the Women's March, I swear I first saw it, and I really started to turn against all this bullshit, this left wing fucking identity politics bullshit.
And all that other stuff.
Right. So they fucking they go up there and they're actively protesting against the conservative women and kicking them out of the Women's March. And I'm like, that's it. I'm done. Anti-abortion women are kicked out. Conservative women are kicked out of the Women's March, which was the first time I saw for sure. None of this messaging is right. This is all about authoritarian control. It's only about we're listening to the women who say exactly what we want to hear. We're listening to the activists who listen to say exactly what we want to hear. And why people haven't talked to me as much in the last time years, because I'm not going to say what you think I'm going to say, because I'm talking about effective policies, not your fucking feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I care about policies that are going to make a difference. And people are fighting for policies that will make things worse. And I don't know how they're not my chief enemy. If I can go and I can make these arguments in right-wing neighborhoods, and they totally fucking get it. If I make these arguments in a Black Lives Matter,
they're doing it because that's who's being protected.
That's not fucking true. Again, they're disproportionately more white females, Asian males, white males, black females, black males. That's the order. You literally have it backwards.
About what?
About the disproportionate police brutality. The whole public narrative.
I never said it's about.
No, not you. The narrative is backwards, and I think.
But I never said that it's not happening. I'm not even fighting.
But you just said they're being protected when they're the biggest victims.
I didn't say what I.
You said that rural America was being protected, and they're the bigger victims.
In regards to the ideology.
What ideology? What ideology? I hate to break this news to you, but the hood is capitalistic, it's conservative, and it's Christian.
Look, I'm Nigerian. We're all fucking Catholics. Come on. Like, it's Yes, in regards to abortion, we're probably more pro life than pro choice. I'm literally
Sure. The vast
so
majority of
again,
Baltimore does not agree. The vast majority of Black Baltimore does not agree with the Black activists from Baltimore.
okay,
That's true in every city.
all right.
These aren't the voice of the people. That's what I argue for. And I need people to see I care about low income, impoverished communities that are being discriminated upon. And that's
Same
not
here.
what the fuck people are talking about.
Same here. I'm doing the exact same. Literally, that's almost Bernie Sanders' entire platform.
Bernie
Literally.
Sanders is a fucking fake and a weak ass.
Look again. In regards to what he's done in the last fucking shit, I'm fucking done.
I
But
hate to
again,
break this news to you, but Trump is going to do more to help Black people than any president probably in any type of modern history. It already happened. COVID messed it up. Do you watch those videos of the people he let out of prison and how much their tears flowing for him? I didn't see any of that with Obama. I was there. I think a lot of people are new activists. I was there with Obama, and I know what the left is like. I know what it's like when you get your ideas.
Trust me, I've been having conversations with my family. It's hugely just democratic. And when I try to bash Barack Obama, they're just like, well, what do you think? Trump's better, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, I'm upset against fucking drone strike in regards to what he basically made it a crime to protest on government buildings. Obama did a bunch of shitty things. Whenever I try to bring up the faults of Obama, I'm getting fucking trashed trying to bring up the negatives of Obama. So trust me, in regards to would these protests be happening if it was under Obama? No. Eric Garner was literally to a T the exact same situation that happened with Michael Floyd. No, sorry.
George Floyd.
Through George Floyd. Were there the same protests? No, they're fucking quiet because they felt that they could just give it up to Obama and Obama would fix the situation. That didn't fucking happen. All right. So if we're going to talk about ideology, I'm not there. He did a bunch of shitty things that pissed me the fuck off that I fucking protested against, but I'm not them.
No, you're not. That's why I'm trying to get your ass away from the people that are doing the exact same thing now.
And I'm already there. I'm away from that shit.
Well, then, then what people like me need is someone like you to wake those people up about actual policy.
And that's the thing is, I believe that this is a new thing that they're bringing up into discussion. I'm understanding that this is the infantile, but I think the conversations need to come up in regards to right now having all of the solutions. It's not having all of the solutions. Right now, it's coming up with the conversations to come up with those policies.
I don't know. I feel like everybody was telling me the same thing 5 years ago.
No, Mike, the reason I called you and had this conversation with you today was to come up with, if you want to see some of my questions, like, well, what do you think is the best way? I'm calling you because of that.
Sure.
So if you're saying that I'm not supposed to have all the answers, I'm not having all the answers. That was not what this call was supposed to be.
Just remember, I use you very plurally a lot. I'm talking to an audience, not just you.
What it turns in is like, I'm like, dude, I'm not these people. I'm not doing this. I'm not a fucking
I get that, but I can't talk to the people that need to focus on policy. And why I know that your optimism is misplaced is because they don't know any of the actual researchers. There are people like Tracy Mears who have been working on rightful policing for decades and developing all the science, laying out all the details, and there's not a single goddamn activist ever that knows the name of Tracy Mears or any of the academics who are working on the policies that go through and understand the big picture of things. People just don't understand it. I don't blame them for not understanding the big picture. So you need to figure out who does understand the big picture and at least consult with those people and figure out what it is. But I know that's not happening in any kind of mass scale. People don't know what rightful policing is. They call for things like community policing, which is literally an FBI program.
I don't even think community policing will fucking work. It's the same reason why, communities and like juries can be manipulated for anything. It's ridiculous. I think knowing that having people and citizens being the ones that are policing, no, that's not fucking work. I'm looking at it in all these indictment cases with the juries. You can manipulate the public to do whatever the fuck you want to do. I guarantee you, if they wanted there's so many names, Derek Chauvin, to get off of an indictment, they will easily be able to do that if they wanted to. They just choose not to.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that right off the bat. It's just that as a closing note to this, finally, I don't know, we got to come
Yes,
back to this later at some
we
point in
gotta get
time.
back to it. It's just
I'm telling you,
how about
the
we do this?
solutions proposed do not align with science, and people are incredibly confident about their ignorance. The solutions being proposed by the movement, I know, aren't focused on police brutality because they don't have any coherent changes in what will actually reduce police brutality. And that's who I generally, I guess I can attribute falsely a lot of these ideas to anybody that I'm talking to when I just associate with you with being on the left. But yeah, I'm going to indict everybody altogether. I think the left needs to clean up their house big time before they start preaching to anybody else.
I think both. I think, and that's the thing is, and I guess yeah. I'll let you finish what you're saying so I can.
No, that's all I'm saying. I just really think the left needs to clean up their shit before they think that their ideas are the solution and go around talking about science when they're not proposing anything remotely aligned with contemporary science.
And I hear you on that. And I think my closing thing is, I think we have to keep what's happening is we're going on, like, for some odd reason, opposite sides. And I'll be honest, it's like I'm saying the left and the right and the right and the left. And I think at the end of the day is there are situations that we are all seeing in regards to policing that we know that need to change. For example, false arrests, false imprisonments, police brutality, police accountability, civil forfeitures, briberies, sexual misconduct, what they just did with no-knock raids, whatever it is. We're seeing a problem and we know that we want to fix it. Now, the issue is this problem exists. You might say it doesn't, but I think the perception is, from what we're seeing, is that, yes, we're seeing these things happen. So what is the best way to stop those things from happening in the scale that it's supposed to be happening? We both, I guess, right now are saying that we acknowledge a problem, correct?
We have the same end goal.
Yes.
Without a question. And I have the same end goal as the left. Like, even police abolishment is the goal. I don't think it's an obtainable goal, but it is the goal.
Yeah. I think it's almost like, how do we have it that we could have the same weird level of respect for police officers that we do the fire department? You know what I mean? And I know that they're different jobs, but it's like, well, how do we get to that same level of respect? And how do?
Or is it even possible, though? I mean, I feel like that's a whole different discussion. Like, I'm not even know if that's possible.
Yeah, and I think that's what we want. And I think it's like we're looking at these government systems like, well, how can we get to that point? I know it's going to be messy. I know it's going to be hard, but through these conversations, is there going to be something that's like, oh shoot, that's it? You know what I mean? And I think the main thing is, like, right now we're having these discussions. And I know we've kind of been going on back and forth for a long time, but it's like we're trying to fix something that we all see as a problem. The solution towards there is tough, I will admit. And I think that we're on a side trying to make it not only, and I think I want to say this point too, because it's like, at the same time, I'm fighting this not only to make it safer for the general public, but I'm also doing this to find that it's safer for police officers as well. Because again, my oldest friend in the world is a police officer. And I know that when these things are going out of hand in regards to the media, in regards to the way that we're seeing everything, that's putting his life at risk. At the same way as I'm going out, I feel that my life is at risk. So I want equal accountability. So at some point that we're both trying to make each other safe. So that's where my empathy comes in. I'm not trying to vilify cops at all. Like, I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to have it that, like, cops that are feeling marginalized, even in the police force, that want to speak up against, the stuff that they see. Because again, we're not really seeing that on a global scale or a national scale.
They don't have a pathway.
Huh?
They don't have a pathway. Like, that's part of my thing is they need a pathway. And if we're demonizing all cops, like, even the idea that people go around demonizing me, it's like, I'm being honest. I'm the last person you should be demonizing.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, like, even with you, it's like I reached out to you and you're just like, you're a cop. And, we had conversations, me and you, that you helped me help, I'll say not me, help us get home from standing there. You know what I mean? You're a cop. I have no ill feel about you. That's why I was just like, hey, dude, good to see you. I'm not demonizing you. I've never, in fact, when certain situations were going down, I was like, no, Mike Wood's a good guy. He helped us get home.
Well, thanks. I know a lot of people don't hesitate to talk
They
shit
won't
about
think
me.
they won't think that is. They won't think that at all. But again, I want you to let you know, it's like, I'm not trying to demonize cops. I'm trying to make it that the voices that are feeling marginalized or silenced in regards to the police community can speak up and go against these cops that are making these, cops that are wanting to do the right thing able to share their voice and call it up, because I want that switch. At the very beginning, I was like, I want that switch with those voices who realize, yeah, that shit is bad. There are fucking bad cops that are doing these shitty things out there, and I don't want them speaking for us, because that is also what's being dominated right now in the media.
Sure. And one thing I would like you to know and other people know, my experience has been the vast majority of cops do that internally. They really do. It's just that how do you do that in the public? But the rules and policies prevent police from doing that in public. They're literally not allowed because police don't have First Amendment rights.
Exactly, and there's another.
So maybe police should have First Amendment rights. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's a good talk. Yeah.
I do want that. I actually do want that. Again, I want equal protections of the law between citizens and cops. That's what I want at the end of the day.
And like law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights, when they say like you can't question a cop for 3 days, like a lot of the movement in Baltimore has been like, no, that's bullshit. Get rid of that. And I've been like, no, there's a good reason for that. How about we stop questioning regular people for 3 days? That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, and when I was saying equal protection of law, I think there's this balancing act. I think there's certain stuff that, like, citizens are able to have more voices in some ways, while cops, even in certain situations, yes, I want you to have First Amendment rights that you could speak out, and also at the same time have immunity in regards to calling out bad cops, that there is that protection for you. Yeah, so again, totally. Would you say that that's taking rights away? No, that's actually even adding more rights to officers.
Yeah, I'm always interested in adding more rights, not taking rights away. And sometimes balance and the idea of equality can lead us to taking people down to the lowest denominator instead of raising them up to the highest denominator.
Yeah, and that's where equity comes in, because it's like you put it in the areas that it needs to go to.
Yeah. Equity, such a tough word. If anybody out there listening, please look at my equity video in regards to the Electoral College on YouTube, because I cannot get into another conversation, but the Electoral College is actually equity in action. And the only reason anybody has a problem with it is because the people with a lesser vote right now are those white rural Americans that we kind of have this perception shouldn't have more of a say because of the history, but because of the way the country balances, there is a reason behind that. And the Electoral College is all about giving the people with less say more say, so that they can find this equitable equation. Because like things like it's just an easy way of looking at it is like LA, New York, Chicago, they get all the public narrative, they have all the newspapers, and really the flyover country is called flyover country because it's silence. Nobody gives a shit what they say. And because they have farms and nobody gives a shit what they say, they have slightly more voting power to make up for that loss, because people clustered in cities don't actually understand the big picture of what America's like and farmlands and stuff like that. I mean, there's a podcast host out there, it's progressive, who flew across the country, took pictures of the farmland over the Midwest that was like, oh, wow, this is crazy. Why do you think the land looks like this? And it's like, Jesus Christ, talk about being in your bubble of what the world really is. You don't know what a farm looks like from the air, right? So there is this idea that equity doesn't always favor us. And we have to remember that people will feel oppressed when they're actually the people in power. And it doesn't matter how you feel. You must stick to the things that are actually tangible. And equity means giving power temporarily to people that are down. And once those people raise up above the mid-level, then the power shifts to the new people that are down below. That's why you have to base things in class. If you start favoring somebody like all blacks, whereas right now it would make sense to do that. If you elevate blacks and then they get above whites, but your policy is to elevate blacks, you just create more racism. The policy has to be that when people rise out of poverty or something objectively measurable, then it switches to the new poor people and we don't get social constructs involved. That's my ultimate solution. If anybody wants to look at civilian-led policing, I really do break down all these nuances, but it's super hard to get into it because I really think that as humans, we are inside our soul seeking power and seeking to control things that seem out of our control. But the best thing we can actually do is give control to those around us, not try and attempt to be benevolent dictators.
I think, yeah, and that's a lot of your conversation too. It's about the electoral college and equity as well. And it's also trying to balance that act where it's like, now does that equity get to a point where we're only trying to fight for those small states, especially like just for example the Rust Belt, or let's just say Mitch McConnell's Kentucky, where now we're kind of funneling the entire country through approximation of about what, 5 states.
Yeah, so it's essentially well, that's what you're talking about with the electoral college in swing states, but this actually works out because the swing states just end up being the key stronghold, and not because of those people's position, because that's what's most closely aligned to the center. Really, the vast majority of things come from New York and California. Most of the public narratives don't come from anywhere but these major population centers with these population densities that give them a disproportionate voting power over things that would be like, so if you want to go by a popular election, obviously New York, Chicago, Phoenix, Houston, they all have these disproportionate influence. When we to balance things out, those people are the people that live in cities are wildly ignorant of what makes this country actually run. They live in these sheltered areas of concrete. They don't know what it means to be. I get that can turn people off.
I think it's both ways, but they're ignorant on the other side.
People that live in rural America do not need the cities. The cities need the people in rural America.
Well, we can't say that because the people that are actually
all that matters is food, shelter.
Yeah, resources. But the people that are actually funding the rest of the country in regards to society are these big cities.
Disagree entirely.
Like
but
it is just California.
Yeah, that's, you would say, funding to drive a Ferrari, but the people that live out in the counties, they don't want that. They don't care. Yeah, well, they don't care. They're not seeking monetary gain. They're seeking a life of making food, providing for the country. The Midwest of this country feeds half of Africa, let alone and tons of other impoverished countries. That's why you eat, because of the work of truck drivers and farmers. You survive because of truck drivers and farmers. You survive in a city solely because of what people in the rural areas do. You cannot have a city if you do not have the rural areas to support them.
But you also have the public assistance through the income from
farmers. I get all that, but that's just controlling the market. So you're talking about using subsidies to control prices, but that's an entirely different argument than who actually has the skills for human invention. If you suddenly cut off the power grid, most people out in the country are perfectly fine. The cities are fucked. Yeah. Right. So I'm telling you, you depend on them for everything. That's why there's this disproportionate amount, because the cities control the narrative while the rural areas control more of the presidential vote, just as a thing to balance the system, because you control the local politics more than you do. And otherwise you would just be ignorant. So if there's a popular election in LA on who gets the water, well, guess who's going to get the water? A bunch of people that aren't producing a fucking thing. That's just the way it is. And so watch my electoral college video if you guys disagree with that. But I know that I get that's going to rub people raw. People don't see the electoral college as some right-wing thing, but that's because they're not willing to accept that those people need a bigger vote.
That can we also say that kind of goes deeper in regards to manipulating who is actually having those votes, meaning in regards to even southern states, in regards to gerrymandering or red mapping and stuff like that.
Oh, sure. Gerrymandering is a different argument, though.
Yeah. Because it's kind of taking away.
But gerrymandering is the problem with authoritarian control. See, that's what I've been arguing with before. So the gerrymandering is done by the left and by the right, depending upon when they get control. So like an area like Iowa, they don't have gerrymandering. They don't care. They're red, right? So the area where gerrymandering comes in is a place like the suburbs of DC, where it's mixed, where you have Royal Virginia with along with the DC butt. And that's where you get all the gerrymandering. So when the right's in charge, they manipulate it. When the left's in charge, they manipulate it. But that's really just in those little areas, and they're having that big. The bigger picture is really relatively well established between the rural areas and the population centers, and the Electoral College provides that balance. I don't blame people in the cities for being completely ignorant about how water works, about how farmlands work, where their food comes from, and what things create waste or whatever. I don't blame them for that. They're the city people. But you got to give the people that do understand that some more of a say. Otherwise, you'll do something stupid, like say that Los Angeles gets all the water, not the farmlands in rural California and Nevada, which they tried to do before. Obviously, the farms need water before anybody else does. I mean, but if you have popular votes, people aren't going to feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm wholly against democracy. I don't. Democracy is mob tyranny. It is a guaranteed fail. If you had a vote for LGBT rights, or let's say we had a President Obama and had votes for LGBT rights, that vote would be lost. And if it was won, the president would have vetoed it. If you were talking about trans rights or any minority rights, then if you have popular elections, minorities get trampled on. We have a constitutional republic for the pure purpose of protecting minority rights. That is why this country exists. That is the purpose.
That's not the way to protect minority. That's
absolutely. Go into the history of this country. We have a constitutional republic to protect minority rights, just like Rome did.
And when did that start?
That's the whole purpose of a constitutional republic.
I know, but when did that start? What year are you saying that started?
Here?
Yeah.
As soon as we drew up our constitution.
So then when they said that it was slaves were 3/5 of a person.
Yeah, that's why we had to do amendments. But the whole point of a constitution, they weren't considered humans at the time. Sorry. I mean, that's just reality. So,
and that's what I'm saying. Is like,
but a constitutional, they weren't considered minorities because they weren't considered humans. But once considered humans, they were obviously given full rights as everybody else.
Were they? So
yeah, eventually. Right now, do you have full rights again?
Again, let me kind of go farther. Let me go back into this. Like, so you can do that, but then you manipulate it by doing vagrancy laws in regards to black codes. So again, you manipulate. You're consistently.
Those are local issues. I'm talking about the governmental system.
Separate but equal. Same thing.
No, that has nothing to manipulate. That has nothing to do with the constitutional republic. Okay.
Again, the Constitution is based on. The 14th Amendment came about because people were manipulating the original Constitution.
Right, but you can't make the 14th Amendment without a constitutional republic.
Correct, but you have to. That's why you have to keep making those amendments.
I understand it's a living, breathing thing. That's the whole point of a constitutional republic, is that these things will come in the future, and we don't know the future. We will need to have something that can adapt it. But the reason why you have things such as the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 is because to protect the minority rights. We can have if we have a population vote in this country right now that says black people no longer have equal rights, the constitutional republic prevents that from occurring.
Would you, and because you're saying it's because
you have to go by the Constitution, not by a vote.
It's protecting rights that were trying to be taken away. So I don't. That's why.
Sure. So it would prevent the rights, established rights for minorities from being taken away by the majority.
Exactly. Yes. So it's keeping it that it's at. I guess we could say that's the most complex way we could say we want equality.
There is no government. It's more equity. There is no.
Again, I guess equity. I guess in regards to that, what I'm saying
because minorities in America have more rights than minorities anywhere else in the world.
But again, you're saying rights, but we're talking about equal.
Right. You have equal rights in America.
But again,
I don't know how we can ever get past that. You literally have equal rights in America. To think you haven't had equal rights in America is fucking nonsense.
When do you think that changed?
Completely? 20 years ago at most. 25. Legally, you can go back to 1964. But I think practically, you're talking about a lot sooner.
And so, what do you think that was that changed it? Actually, we're going to keep going.
Martin Luther King changed it more than anything. when it comes to the culture of America as a whole. And I'm telling you wholeheartedly, this is I don't know why people think otherwise, but the right wing thoroughly adopted Martin Luther King's ideology. Thoroughly.
I think they use it to silence
I totally
aggression.
disagree with you. I've been to Confederate rallies with black people standing there waving Confederate flags.
That's,
Huh?
I don't know how that's even possible. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I know you don't. I get that. But that's because you're not empathizing with that person and you're not seeing that the flag, just like the American flag, means different things to different people.
Mhm.
And to many people, flying that Confederate flag means something as simple as their team of the South and like Dukes of Hazzard and like good old boys going fishing. And they literally mean nothing about whiteness. I've seen them be groups that are half white, half black, going
Yeah.
out, listening to country music and doing all there are tons of black people that do the entire Confederate thing. Uh,
Yeah, you know that. I'm
right.
very aware.
Those people aren't racist. They're just fucking not. I've been around them and they're not
Racist,
talking about this. They're culturalists, and I get that. So,
racist against who?
against any blacks
These black people?
or the white people that are hanging out with them. They're just not.
Or do you think they're just making the exception that, oh,
No,
that's the
I
way?
mean these people are that are entirely in control of their local governments. They make no rules. They do nothing. I mean, they hire the black person. They work for the black person. They sell to the black person. There's literally nothing happening at all. I mean, there's no cases. I mean, like the KKK is like 3,000 people that can't even show up for a meeting. I mean, this doesn't really exist.
What, what,
Anti-black
what, what doesn't actually exist?
any overt racism is statistically irrelevant. It doesn't really
Oh,
exist anymore. It's if anything, it's these hidden things in the system that we're talking about. That's why I always jump on blaming people. I just
oh,
don't see racist people. I see racist actions, and when they occur, they're usually out of ignorance. Just like Daryl Davis. I mean, Daryl Davis spent all these years going around and converting KKK members, a black man going
yeah.
into these rural areas, these areas where allegedly he's being hunted down, and as Ice Cube would say or something. And he goes into these areas, befriends KKK members, has them give up their robes, and goes about his day completely unscathed. But when he goes and speaks at a presentation in New Jersey, the Black Lives Matter shows up and protests him, calling him a racist. What the fuck?
Hmm?
That's the way the reality is of life. I'm telling you, these people are not racist. They're not.
The Confederate individuals and people that are saying the N word or different stuff, they're not racist.
Yeah, most people that would say the N word, I would say, I mean, if I ever said it to somebody, it would only be somebody that I knew it got under their skin. And
Is it racist?
huh?
Is it racist?
Saying it?
Yeah.
I have no
Calling
idea.
something. Calling
I have no idea. Right. But from my experience, the reason why somebody makes an insult to a light-skinned black dude or a dark-skinned black dude or one from Africa or saying the N-word to somebody, it's only because they know that word will affect them. It's to trigger them and make them become weak. That's the entire point of the slur, is to trigger you. That's it. So if
so
they're judging that that's what's going to trigger you, then they'll do that. But that doesn't mean it comes from a racist place. If I knew that you hated that word and you pissed me off, I'd probably say it just to goat you. It would have nothing to do with racism. It would be that you can't fucking tell me what word I can use. Watch me use it, and if you got a problem with it, you're the weak one. That's my perspective. I understand that other people can have other perspectives, but neither one is wrong.
but didn't you say earlier that you believe in, so then what is, because you said opposite racism, but that exists?
I just mean that it's so somebody could understand it, and that the people saying racism, I really think that everything is projection. And I don't know how I avoid that with myself. It's kind of a convoluted situation. But like say when somebody says, so Ukraine scandal. You have this Ukraine scandal where the Joe Biden will come out and talk about, oh man, Trump is doing these bad things in Ukraine.
Yeah.
He's scandalizing this government. The only reason he's accusing Trump of that is because he did it. He knows that that's a possible. That's an option on his list. Now he's projecting that to be an option on Trump's list, but that might not even be an option on Trump's list. He may have never even thought of that. So when you project things, so I think most people that say, oh my God, this is I'm being treated racist here. They think it's racism because they think racistly. They
So
think it's sexism because they think sexistly. They don't attribute it to the normal thing where, like, say you're going down the road and you cut somebody off, they drive by, spit at you, and call you a nigger, and then you get all upset saying, "Oh my God, this person's racist." Or it could have to do with the fact that you fucking cut them off and they wanted to say something that would get your vote. It doesn't mean anything.
what about a situation where you're 8 years old, you're sitting on the side of the street, and a guy drives down the road, tries to hit you with his car, and as he's driving down the street, he calls you a nigger. Is that racist?
I mean, maybe. I would think odds are that person's going through a biological malfunction.
Yeah, because that happened to me. That happened.
Yeah,
So,
but I would think they have no intent. That's totally, they're out of their own control.
but that's completely in control.
No. I think that's a mental illness.
He did that more. This guy, sorry, he did this more.
Biological malfunctions aren't necessarily temporarily. So a serial killer is going around killing people. They're in a long-term mental state. Somebody can have a tumor. There's a famous case where they really talk about this, where a person got a tumor in their head. He didn't know, but he goes to the doctor and he's like, dude, something is seriously wrong with me. I'm having like these pedophilia feelings. I'm being sexually attracted towards children, and this isn't me. Something is fucking wrong. They do a scan, find out he has a tumor pressing on this part of his brain. They take the tumor out. The feeling's completely gone. These things we are biological creatures that just respond to the stimulus. If you were born with Saddam Hussein's DNA, had his experiences, you would be Saddam Hussein and you would act exactly like him. That is true for everyone. So the vast majority of these things, when you see people doing things that you think are outlandish, like somebody yelling out with bringing a sword and trying to attack some guy and calling him something, whether it's black or white, doesn't matter. These are temporary or longer term biological malfunctions. Something is wrong. This is not how humans respond. This is not how we evolved.
So what about the? I guess. So what about the? I guess you're saying the projection. I guess would the projection go both ways? Because if you're saying that someone is saying
because it's your idea, you have to have the idea. The idea has to be in your head, and then you give that attribution to somebody else when you know nothing about that person.
Well, I think someone that is saying, calling you the N-word.
I just gave you a reason why I could do it to you that's not racist. Right? So if I already think that you're weak when it comes to hearing that word, right? I'm a bit of a bully. I'll admit that. So if you were pissing me off, I would probably call you that, just knowing that it would trigger you, and I'd watch you get upset and I'd revel in it. But that wouldn't be me being racist. It would be me being a dick because you're weak.
Okay.
That doesn't make it racist. Can't project your intent onto somebody else. So when we say,
you know, but here's the thing: is if you know that a situation, if you say this term, it is going to be a racist term, you know what you're doing. You're making a conscious decision to make an action which you know would be racist, and doing that. That's like me saying,
no, I don't think that's racist.
But again, it's almost being like, hey,
no, it's not racist. You're perceiving it racistly. That's why I'm saying it.
Well, no, but if
I think it's a word that shouldn't be able to affect anyone. You are defining it that way. Get the difference?
In defining that.
I define it as just any old word, and you should be able to say any old word, and that
you can't say whatever word you want.
No. I'm just telling you my opinion. So I see it as any word that. The only reason I would do it is to trigger you, not to be racist, because you're seeing it that way. If you were affected by being called, a light-skinned bitch, I would call you a light-skinned bitch. But if you're affected by nigger, I'm probably going to call you that. Because I want to affect you. I want to pull out your weakness, and I want to make fun of it. That's what a bully does.
Yes. And
I get it. I'm a bully, but not a racist one.
What? But I think you could have both. You could have both.
I understand you can, but what I'm telling you is you don't have any ability to know that.
You said actions, though. Words and actions.
Sure.
That is an action.
Sure.
You're making an action.
Yep. A racist action.
Right. Fine. He might not be, he's not a racist, but he does a hell of a lot of racist actions.
Sure. So I want to stop him from doing racist actions. Sure.
Yeah. So you might not believe in racism.
Yeah, but you're going to have to convince everybody. I don't think you're going to convince anybody that saying nigger is racist.
Fine. Don't believe that there's racism, but you do believe that racist actions exist.
Absolutely.
Great. Cool. That's fine. That's fine. We'll settle then. Because if you don't believe racism exists, but as long as you accept that
Right, that's the
race,
big objection. Race is not real. Racism doesn't exist, but
it
race
does
is
because
that shit.
we
Sure,
created it.
so racism only exists as long as that fake social construct is sown. So racism will only exist as long as people keep defining themselves and segregating themselves by race. That's the necessary element of it.
Yeah, but that wouldn't fix situations.
Yeah, it would.
So if you're saying that we just stop referring to people as men and women, we still wouldn't have biological elements.
We wouldn't have genderism, no.
We wouldn't have situations where it's like,
we would have sexism. We can't do anything about sexism.
We would just be like saying, oh shoot.
Right. If we took the perspective that there's no such thing as man and woman or anything like that, or there's no such thing as sexual orientation, that you just love who you love, then yeah, you wouldn't have any gay discrimination or ever if you always had the idea that you love who you love and there's no such difference. Sure.
Well, you would, because at the end of the day, it's men. There's biological differences where a woman is having.
I don't care. That's sex. That's not gender. I'm talking about
sex.
I'm talking about gender.
Yes, we also know that gender is a social construct.
Right. So it's just social construct. Gender can't be defined. So you got to drop it. Sex is an unavoidable biological reality. So you will always have sexism. There's nothing you can do about it. But my problem is there's a lot you can do about genderism and racism because they're not real.
They've been created.
Right, which means they're not objectively real. They cannot be measured.
It's tough to say that it's not real.
I keep asking you, is Sean King black? Because the whole point is blackness can't be measured. He thinks it's black. He is black. I think by any definition of black possibly you can arrange to, he is not black.
I think
so.
Again, in regards to Sean King being black, yeah, I'd say.
Right, yeah, but what his message would be better if there was no race concept, right?
What be better?
His arguments would be better if he would take race out of them. The same thing with even if he didn't identify as race, his arguments would be taken more seriously. Half the people dismiss anything he says because he's obviously a white guy pretending to be black, which he's white.
I think he's mixed. I think he's mixed.
Okay, well, if you're going to call him black or mixed or whatever, by physical appearance, he looks whiter than any friend I've probably ever had. So I don't know where he is. He's definitely on the whiter side than me. So I don't know where that places him. It doesn't place me black because I don't associate as black. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, but I think it's also very different in a country that has actually set up those guidelines.
Whatever. I don't care. See, that's the thing. You're saying because white people did this to divide us that I'm going to continue living.
I'm not even saying.
No, you are. I understand it can be different, but just because social constructs are strong doesn't mean they don't need to be devolved. Just because you've integrated blackness into your identity doesn't mean it doesn't. Your next step of adulthood and evolution is shedding that ideology. You are not black. You are Emmy. That's who you are. Right?
Yes, correct. I can look at myself.
But as long as
celebrating culture and celebrating identity and celebrating a shared.
You don't have anything shared with people because of a fake idea of where your association.
It is because we're talking about parents who are literally alive today. Your parents were alive during separate but equal in Jim Crow.
No, that
was a division based on
race.
They weren't. No, they weren't. What?
No, my mom's like 59.
When was it? How old are you? I thought you're how's that possible?
I'm 40.
I thought you were 43.
No.
Oh. Well, again, sorry. 59, you have a very young mother. Right?
I'm just saying these things were a long time ago. The Civil Rights Act in 1964 was a long time ago.
The first woman to have entered an integrated school, she's only 65 years old.
But understand that if you didn't have the idea woman and you didn't have the idea black, these things wouldn't matter, and they won't matter now if we would drop them.
Wait, what do you mean? What wouldn't matter?
You can't have genderism if you don't abide by genderism. You can't have racism if you don't acknowledge race.
I can admit that, I guess, as a society, but in regards to institutions which were setting those policies in place.
Don't allow the institutions are created by you.
Through who?
So the federal government right now tracks race. Be a great idea to fight that.
Well, again, you said that we created this. Black people, I did not think created
Black people
slavery.
continue it more than anyone else. Again, white America has adopted Martin Luther King's idea that you are judged to be the merit, not the content, not the color of your skin.
They
They
do that
have
to
adapted that idea.
they do that on the silence. They do that to silence
Yeah, I
the argument.
totally disagree. I don't think you should
It
shit
is
on them
because
like
after
that.
that they said, "I want to judge you not on the color of your skin," and then immediately bring up statistics on black and race and all this other stuff. So they lie. They don't. They're not being honest. They're not being. They're not being honest.
I totally disagree with that. I don't.
Yeah, but they
I,
do because they say, "I don't see race," and then
I,
all of a
I
sudden,
think you're projecting again,
this is
because
true.
they don't say that. They don't say that. They
Yeah,
say,
no,
listen, they say when you say the blacks are that police are an existential threat to blackness. When Ice Cube says,
I,
"I'm being hunted down," they say, look, you're not being hunted down by the police in any kind of comparison to how you're being hunted down by your own people as you define them.
but you also said as a police officer that you did do stuff based on race.
Right. I
So then
shouldn't
how
have
can
been
you say,
going by that
hold on,
decision.
hold on, but hold on. I want to go back on that. You said you did stuff based on race, but now you're saying that race doesn't exist when a system was telling you to do this based on race.
Right. Because the forms say this, because the black leaders told me this. Again, I was the pawn amongst your people.
But then a system, so you're saying it's only black officers that are telling them to over police black communities, only black leaders.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm telling you that if you go to any of these cities that you have the biggest problem with, they are black cities with black leaders, and you're blaming the white pawn.
I'm looking at Minneapolis right now.
Minneapolis is a black city where these things occur.
Well, the police, what was it? The police head of the police union was basically saying like the stuff that in regards to George Floyd was just like, yeah, who has ties to like white supremacy. So it's like, again,
he has ties. You're alleging that he has ties to white supremacy.
I
Come
could
on.
actually figure it out. Hold on.
Come on, man. You got ties to black supremacy. Let's just cut it now and get at a different point. I'm gonna roll. I gotta spend some time with my family. I hope that you sleep with us and think about what I'm saying. I know it's very personal to you to identify as black, but as long as you do that, you assure the ism. Every fake division is a division we can prevent. Now, you're male. I can't prevent that.
I think you have to talk about it and embrace it.
No, if you embrace it, you are creating more of it. The white America has not embraced this idea of racism. They have embraced Martin Luther King's idea.
Yeah, they never have.
Right, but the only people that are talking about race are you guys. Don't you get that?
No, it's not. Both sides are talking about.
You don't go to any white neighborhood and hear people talking about race. They don't.
Because it doesn't affect them in that way. They can be silent about it. They also don't talk about homophobia in the exact same way.
That's not true. I mean, they have black people in their neighborhoods. They have black people that come over to them. They don't see the world. They think each individual should be judged upon the content of their character.
No, it's not. I've lived in a white community.
You are literally telling me how white people are genetically evil right now, and they feel this bad.
Genetically evil.
You're literally saying, yes, these people feel this way because they're white.
No, I said you're saying that they don't think this way.
They don't.
Because first off, you're speaking in an entirety. I'm saying in the community that I grew up in, there were people that were doing.
Are there outliers? Yes. And again, are there people that might have called you a nigger to get under your skin, but you let that happen? You created the environment where your skin was that weak to get under. You don't have the ability to distinguish that difference. You don't know whether it's because you were black or because you were triggered.
Well, no, I think it's when you have a situation where, let's just say another situation.
Are you triggered by the word nigger every time a fucking rapper says it?
Am I?
Yeah.
Well,
but you're triggered when a white guy says it. Amazing.
Well, no, actually, I'm actually being triggered in the exact same way if I heard Jesse Lee Peterson saying it or Candace Owens saying it. I would be triggered probably, if not more.
Oh, so you're a culturalist as well?
What do you mean a culturalist?
You would be. You think Candace Owens can't say nigger, but like fucking Eminem can?
No, I'm just saying what I feel. Would I be like upset?
Yeah, your feelings are that it's just as bad for Candace Owens to say that it is for Eminem.
I'm saying if Candace Owens said it because I know when the rappers are saying it, I know they're not saying it in a way that's harmful. Candace Owens or Jesse Lee Peterson,
No.
who is basically saying that
Words are harmful to you?
Again, you're conflating.
Right. You keep saying that words are harming you, and you got to understand that in my definition of man, words cannot harm you.
Look, I said in regards to if a white person said it to me, I was like, yeah, would I? You said, would I be responding the same? I was like, no, it all depends. I said, I'd probably have a similar response, not just based on white race, because you're talking about white race right now, because we're talking about the community where I said I was 97% basically white. And I'm not even saying all white people were saying that. That's where this conversation came from. So if I got called a N-word from a person from that community who's also been downplaying or attacking Black people in my community, yes, I'd have an issue with that.
Right, but how do you know it's not because they're Black?
If my brother called me the N-word, I was like, I know he doesn't mean it.
Right, but how do you know it's not because that it's because you're Black and not because of your behavior? How do you know that?
That they're calling me the N-word?
Right, you just made a cultural claim that you would see.
And then giving me another situation that same time giving me my brother a card.
Right, I've told you all these things about if I called you the N-word, that it would be about because I thought it would get under your skin, and I would think that would be easy to do.
And that's a racist action.
Right, but how do you know that's the truth?
I don't care.
How do you know that I'm not actually just racist?
You probably are. I don't know, but again, you're doing a racist action.
Right, but only you think it's racist. I don't.
You would, because you wouldn't have said it. You wouldn't go towards that. You know.
No, you defined it, Evie. Your sensitivity defined it.
I don't know how we're having this.
Yeah, I just need you to see that issue. Your sensitivity defines it.
Again, but you're saying you did policing based on race. I don't even know how we're getting on this conversation on if you believe race.
They police based on socioeconomic.
You said that they also did it based on race as well.
Right, but the races are clustered in the socioeconomic.
Yes, but you said that they did it on race. So
but it's not because of police. It's not their intent. You don't know intent.
Again, it doesn't. The intent is.
It does, because if you think someone's racist, it requires intent.
Yes, the intent is I'm going to say something racist to them to hurt them. I don't care. You're trying to hurt them.
Right, saying something racist to you because you're a pussy does not make me racist.
It's calling me a pussy isn't racist.
Right, but if I say something racist to you because you'll be triggered, I'm saying it because you're a pussy, not because I'm racist.
You're saying it, you're doing a racist. First off, the amount of people that have called me the N-word.
Right, remember, not you general, anyone that I would say it to. I'm telling you, I would only say it because I saw it as a weakness.
Yeah, and that's actually more of a weakness on the individual, which we could also.
Sure, I'm comfortable with that. Yes, the point is, you don't get to judge my intent. You're literally incapable of it.
But you're doing something that you know is racist. You know
racism must require intent.
Again,
racism requires intent.
Yes,
a racist action requires your fucking opinion.
So racist acts to do what?
You might think it's racist to call someone the N-word. I don't.
Great.
Right. Neither of our opinions are valid.
I guess that's where we're gonna have a disconnect, because I don't know. There's no way that you could be like you calling me the N-word is not a racist act.
I just gave you a reason. It's literally a dickhead act.
Okay, then we're gonna. It's a
bully dickhead act because I see weakness.
Yeah,
I wouldn't see that weakness, but I wouldn't see that weakness if you weren't triggered by it. You create it.
They both exist.
Maybe.
They both exist.
Maybe.
They both exist.
Maybe, but you can't tell when someone else's intent is wrong unless it's very obvious.
First off, their intent is already wrong. If they're calling me a nigger trying to hurt my feelings, their intent is already wrong.
But intent wrong as a dickhead, not as a racist.
Yes, he could also be a dickheaded.
Don't regulate you in this country. You're not going to regulate people from being dickheads.
I'm not. Who said I'm trying to regulate? When did I say you can't call me? I never said you can't.
I know you're not saying that. I'm telling you, just as a principle of determining what is racist and what isn't is extremely complicated.
I think we do it to complicate things. I think it doesn't need to be that
No,
complicated.
I think it's complicated that you're holding on to the idea that this can't, that this
No,
can
because you
all
have
be stopped if you stop living by it.
because I think people have an issue that calling somebody racist that they don't want to be labeled as a racist.
Of
That's
course
the
not.
issue. The issue is people don't want to be labeled as a
Right.
racist,
Right.
even though that all of their actions
Right.
are racist activities. There's
Right.
this fear of being called a racist.
Right.
Oh, I'm
So
not a
let's
racist.
watch the
I can
left
do
and watch
racist acts
your
all day.
team be racist, create policies that are racist, and make more policing be racist out of your good intent. Let's watch it happen.
Okay, we'll see.
Because that's what we're watching happen.
That's fine.
And now you'll see eventually, 50 years from now, you will see as everybody gets away from race again, you'll see that the only way to equality is to drop social constructs.
We will see, because so far, letting go of race has actually
the 90s were fucking awesome. We watched black
race. What are you
we watched black TV all day long.
Great.
We went together. We were a team. Everybody was America.
Because it was silence. I was called the N-word, and there was so much racism from you as a white male. Possibly you didn't see black racism. But me as a black individual who is dealing with the situations all the time, the only thing that's different it's that it's getting recorded. So you're saying for you it was
not true.
For
it's
you
less now.
For me, I'm telling you, I had the most racist elements that happened to me in the 90s. Hands down. So you're saying it's not happening? Yes, for you. You didn't have to face it in regards to that way.
I don't know why you didn't think I don't know any black people or live in black neighborhoods or live in poverty, but okay. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Let's go. I gotta go. My family's waiting for me.
All right,
I gotta go.
My girlfriend's literally, if you want to come inside.
Good talking to you, brother. I gotta go.
I gotta go too.
All right, we're picking up later.